Hello, everybody. This is Danny at Partey. I saw a video that Crow 1176 had loaded up this morning, where he's speaking to ambient light rejection, and I really like the content. So thank you, Crow, and I'm going to piggyback on that. So apologies, Crow, but I wanted to add some more detail because this is really a subject that touches our business, right? So I'm just going to give you sort of the elevator speech that we give most of our customers whenever we're first talking to them so that they understand at least the fundamentals of projection. So in projection, you're going to have one of the parts of the equation, and parts of the equation are going to be your projector. Then you're going to have the tone, absorption, reflectivity, and inclusion of your screen. And so let me describe what those actually mean here in just a second. And then you're going to have diffusion, rejection, and your environment. So those are really the components that make up a great, I guess you could say, a cinematic experience, but it's not always cinema. In many of the cases, our applications are more training or worship type environments, where you don't have as much control over the ambient light in the room. So really we look at it as fit for purpose. So when you think of fit for purpose, we can't turn out all the rooms in a life center or in a sanctuary to project something, because if one of our seniors has to get up and actually leave and go to the restroom, that could be a hazard, right? So you've got situations where it just can't be, and you're going to have to project in higher light environments. And some of those environments are extremely bright. I just loaded one up yesterday for a youth room that was measuring in somewhere at about 650 lux on the walls. So that's a big deal, right? And we have to work with that because they still want to project in that room, but they don't necessarily want to go spend $4, $5, $6,000 for one of those screens. So I'll just get into real quick. So when you talk about the projector, it's all about lumens, right? So it's all about specifically ANSI lumens, but total lumens in a projector is going to make a big deal. So that'll overcome some of your ambient light according to how bright the projector is. If you've got a 3 to 5,000 lumen projector, it's going to significantly help you in bright environments. If your environment's not so bright, you can probably get away with a lot less, maybe even down to 1,000, and still have a cinematic experience. Maybe not as vibrant, but still a cinematic experience. So projector really doesn't play into the rejection model, other than the brighter the projector, the better the image is going to help you out. So let's get into the rejection component. So when we start looking at tone, so let's look at your screen and think tone, absorption, your surface, and inclusion. So the flatter the surface, the better the reflectivity. Whenever you have a rough surface, you may get some angular reflectivity that happens in spots or something like that. But for the most part, you're going to have micro shadowing that occurs due to those bumps and ridges. So the smoother the surface, usually the better. Some small amounts of texture can actually add some contrast in some screens, especially when you're dealing with white screens. But overall, smoother, better. Tones. So when you look at darker screens, and when I say darker, and I'm going to go ahead and speak to some inclusion. Inclusion meaning whatever additives are being put in to try to increase reflectivity, or diffusion in that matter. But let's speak to reflectivity real quick. So no matter how metallic you make something, you could use a pure silver or platinum metallic, and you're still going to be under a 1.0 gain, because those metallics have a tone that is darker than the 1.0 white matte. So you're going to have absorption. And keep in mind, even mirrors absorb light. So, and mirrors are extremely reflective to the point that you couldn't even use them because they give you the mirroring effect, right? Same thing with gloss paints. Use high gloss paints, you get a mirroring effect. You can see the projector in your screen. So, whenever you look at darker tones, pretty much any paint is going to be under a 1.0 gain. And the reason for that, once again, is because if you take a reading, give you a simple example. If you take a white matte piece of screen at a 1.0 gain, right? 1.0, and then you take a light reading off of it. Let's say you get back 40 lux. To get to a 1.1, that means that you need to get 10% more light reflected back, right? So that means you're going to have to come up with something that gives you 44 lux. Well, going to a darker screen ain't going to do that for you, and giving you the metallics ain't going to do that, because you're going to lose more to absorption than you're going to gain in reflectivity. So once again, paints will not get you there. Is that a bad thing? No, no. Actually, this screen right here is about a 0.6 gain and works great in this room. As a matter of fact, right now I have lights on. I've got a window behind me. I've got a lamp behind me that's on. And it reads roughly about 27 lux, 27 to 28 lux on the screen surface. And this screen will handle that just fine. It's not hard on the eyes. It's very easy to watch, even at its large size, and even puts out a good bit of light in here at night without having a light on in the room, right? So it looks great in the dark. So is it a bad thing to have less than one gain? Absolutely not. Do not make people think, or do not let people make you think that you need a 1.2 or a 1.3 or a 1.5 gain. As a matter of fact, once you get over 1.3, you really get into hotspot territory. So just kind of move on from there. So also, one last thing is on metallics. When you're dealing with metallics, a lot of times what you're going to run into is also a color shift. The more metallic content that you have in a paint, the more your colors are going to shift, and they're going to naturally want to push to a blue hue, which is why you see some of the folks that are pushing their product out there use aquarium scenes, because that way they can mask that in the aquarium scenes. But when they go to any other scene, you're going to see that blue hue. And I'm going to show you an example here real quick. As a matter of fact, let me see if I can get out of here quickly and get into that picture. There we go. So here's an example. If you look here, even in the face, all the hues are blue. Now, they'll try to tell you a lot of times it's because of the light hitting the screen. A wash won't do that. A wash will actually dilute the image, but your colors should still be represented there. Maybe not as vibrant, but they're still going to be represented. This is all blue. Everything in here has a blue push, and that's why you want to stay away from heavy metallics, because you're never going to get good color articulation in this. And this one specifically, the individual says it has 12 times color enhancement. Now, I'm not sure exactly what that means. I don't think that's a technical term, because his screen's definitely not pushing HDR. But I'd leave him to explain what he means by that, but I don't get it. It's not a scientific component to this whatsoever. So let's move into, I'm going to get back out of this. So let's move into diffusion. And in diffusion, so diffusion is the process by which you can see somehow the light's diffusing here, right? So there's a small wash that's on the screen from the light that's coming into the room. That diffusion is taking that and trying to gradient it across the screen in a way where it doesn't wash out the screen in specific areas, especially where light's coming in from the side or from the top, right? From ceiling lights and things like that. It should stop it or wash the gradient to the point to where, it doesn't infringe upon the image. Problem is now you can get to a certain light level where you just can't, it diffuses the whole screen and you lose your image. And so you have to know what level of lux your screen can take before it starts to wash out. And that's a scientific method. You're going to need to know that. Otherwise, you're just guessing in the dark, and that's not really doing your customers justice. Rejection. Let's talk about rejection real quick. Paints will never reject light. Okay? They can diffuse light. They will absorb light, they can reflect light, but they will never reject it, because rejection is from a block. So your ceiling light rejection screens, think your sawtooth screens, your prism screens, they will reject light coming in from certain angles, all right, but they will not reject all light. And even your lenticular screens will not reject all light. They'll only reject light from certain areas, and then they narrow your viewing cone. So these are all things to consider whenever you're watching these videos, because at the end of the day, if you're looking for something just in your home, we deal in commercial spaces where we can't get around the ambient light. But if you're working in your home and you can control it, does a good thing to try to control it and then just find a tone that actually gives you what you want to represent. So we thank you, and y'all have a good day.